We have the director of sport at the United States Equestrian Federation on here. His name is Will Connell, and we're going to talk about the Pan Am Games. And, the reason I have him on is we had a couple of listeners that messaged me and said, I know nothing about the Pan Am Games. I know there's such a thing as a Pan Am Games, but what really are the Pan Am Games? And, Will, I got to tell you that I think for people who aren't avid followers of the sports at the Pan Am Games, you kind of go, I've heard of that, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. And the average person just is on the fringes of it. And we wanted you on to kind of explain it for us. So good morning, Will.
Good morning. Good morning to your listeners. Good morning, Glenn. Good morning, Jamie. Yeah, well, I only came over to America from Great Britain last year, so I'm still learning about the Pan Am Games. So, being asked to come on the show was a good opportunity to do a bit of research.
Well, terrific. Well, good. We'll all learn together.
I'm a newbie too. So, the Pan Am Games, it's regional games held throughout America. The idea dates back to 1924 with the Central American Games. But the first Pan American Games wasn't actually held till 1951 because there was a bit of a bust-up going on in Europe and other parts of the world in between. But really the first games, Argentina topped the medal table, but since 1955, the US has topped the medal table, and there's been 2 Pan American Games in the US, in Chicago and in Indianapolis. And of course, the Pan American Games took place in Rio in 2007, which has given the American teams, a good insight into what we might see at the Olympic Games next year. There's actually 36 different sports competing this year in Toronto, and probably in the region of 7,000 athletes. And there are 15 sports in the Para-Pan Am Games. So like with the Olympics and the Paralympics, there's now an able-bodied and a disabled games. Unfortunately, para-equestrian dressage isn't yet in the Para-Pan Am Games. Bit of a mouthful, that, isn't it? But hopefully we'll get there. So, it's a big deal. A lot of athletes heading to Toronto, a lot of support staff, and definitely a focus for the U.S. Equestrian Federation.
Well, now, is this going to be, is it at Bromont where we're going to be having the World Equestrian Games here coming up? Is it the same venues or is it a different place?
No, we are just to the north of Toronto, a place called Caledon Equestrian Centre, which is a well-known equestrian centre, especially in jumping world, but also dressage and a few other disciplines. So they've upgraded the venue. It's a super venue. The dressage and the jumping competitions will take place at Caledon, and the dressage and the jumping phases of the eventing competition will take place at Caledon. And the cross-country venue is about 20 minutes from the main equestrian venue. So not at Bromont. I was actually up at Bromont a couple of weeks ago. What a lovely part of the world that is. So we'll be heading up to Caledon, just north of Toronto, but very much a multi-sport games. And I guess that's one of the advantages. I mean, I know the European system inside out, having been there for 11 years. This is a huge multi-sport games. It's probably, I think, the largest multi-sport games. Well, it is the largest multi-sport games that US athletes can compete in outside the Olympics. And there's a very interesting fact that statistically in most sports, athletes perform better at their second Olympics because, when you go into that multi-sport environment, it's quite a slap. It's huge. It's, people win medals that cope with the Olympics. People don't win medals when they don't cope with the Olympics. And I think the Pan Am Games give our young athletes, and we have a number of athletes having their first appearance on the team, it gives them a real experience ahead of the Olympics, which I think gives them a benefit above their European counterparts.
Well, and I know that we have competitors from dressage, eventing, and jumping going, so it is really good practice for the Olympics coming up. Now, we have another question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but in dressage, and my wife asked me this again yesterday, and I don't know the answer, and I help with the dressage radio show, so that tells you how closely I listen. So they have a big tour and a small tour. And they have people from the United States going on the big tour and people from the United States going on the small tour. What is that, like pros and amateurs? What's the difference there?
No, well, this is a great question, and I would say what's happening here is the sport of dressage within the Pan American Games movement is is moving up a notch, but it's quite rightly doing it slowly but surely. So previously, all the competition in the dressage at the Pan Am Games was at what's colloquially called small tool level. Prix St. George, Intermediate 1, that sort of level. But the Olympic Games is at Grand Prix level. So what the Pan Ams have done is said, we recognize that we need to be moving towards Olympic level. And we also recognize that we have some countries that are still developing and can't turn out a full team of Grand Prix horses. So we're going to take it gradually. So you can send a mixture of Grand Prix, which is the top level dressage, and Prix St. George Intermediate 1, which is kind of the next level down. They can be developing riders, developing horses. So you could have a young rider on an experienced horse, an experienced rider on a developing horse, developing rider on a developing horse. And the team competition comes from a mixture between those scores. So it's very much not about amateur and professional. It's about ramping up the level of the sport in the Americas. So, yeah, I'm going to admit it's not going to be the easiest to follow in terms of a team score, because not only do we have a mixture of Grand Prix and Prix St. George, but we also have a coefficient. So your scores.
You have a what?
Yeah, a coefficient. Maybe
it's
that's
math,
not
Glenn.
word. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's where I got lost. It was the whole math thing.
Yeah, so the math thing.
Is that like a handicap in golf?
No, quite the opposite, actually.
Oh.
So if you get 60%, and hopefully we'll get a lot more than that, but the math is easy, at the Grand Prix, it actually becomes it's 1.5% higher in calculating the team score. So what they're saying is, look, we're encouraging people to send Grand Prix horses. People should be training towards reaching that Grand Prix level. This is about encouraging the sport in the Americas. And I know it's going to be complicated to follow. And luckily, we have someone with a huge brain that's going to sit there in the stands and double check they get all the scoring right. But
we wonder why non-horse people don't get it.
Well, I think that's true. But you know what? We've got that, and you're absolutely right in saying that. But this is about moving the sport forward. And actually, really, as long as the computers are generating the right score, the non-horse people won't.
They won't know the difference
going on. And
right.
look, we've got 2 people from the top 10 in the world going with Laura Graves and Stefan Peters. And when they start producing that dancing in the main arena in Caledon, I don't think people are going to be wondering about the 1.5%.
No, they're
going to be watching Laura and Stefan saying, hey, these are hot property. These are top athletes on top horses. And, that's good for US dressage. So, yeah, and I personally think they've done absolutely the right thing. They've said, look, we've got to crank this up. We've got to aim towards being at Olympic level at the Pan Am Games, but we can't go there immediately. We need to take the whole continent and help them on that journey to having more nations from the Americas doing dressage at the Olympic Games.
Now, let's go to eventing here a little bit. So what level would that be? They use stars in eventing. Is this a 3-star, a 4-star level competition?
It's a kind of 2-star.
2-star?
2-star
okay.
plus.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's about ensuring participation. But look, we've got a very clear target for the US in dressage and in eventing that this is our main opportunity now to qualify teams for the Olympic Games next year. So we're taking a very exciting team in eventing. We've got Philip Dutton and Boyd Martin, vastly experienced Olympians. Philip's number 3 in the world, Boyd number 11 in the world, but backed up by 2 riders who are on their first US team, Lauren Kiefer and Marilyn Little, who've had some outstanding results this year. So, I'm really, really thrilled by that team, and they're great supporters, their owners, and the donors from the foundation that give us money to get to the Pan Am Games. It's a real team effort to get there. But, so it's 2-star plus, and we're not only aiming to bring home a bucket full of medals, but primarily our primary aim for dressage and eventing is that all-important, so valuable Olympic qualification.
And you know what? We don't have too shabby a team either, Jamie, heading for jumping. We got Georgina Bloomberg, Kent Farrington, Laura Ho, and McLean Ward. So there's an all-star team.
Who? Never heard of
any of them, right?
Never heard of any of them, no. I mean, hey, it's only an Olympic gold medalist, the number 3 in the world. Lauren, who went to Sydney when she was 20, I think. No, I shouldn't say it. But massively experienced team. And Georgina, experiencing her first top-level team appearance. But for the jumpers, it's 2015 is very much a year of many halves, because they qualified at the World Equestrian Games last year for the Olympics. That's superb performance in the team and the individual. And they're focused on many things this year, one of which, of course, is the Pan American Games. They've already qualified for the FIOSIMA Nations Cup final in Barcelona, which is a very big team competition. So many competitions for the jumping team. But it just shows, some people say, Pan Am Games, what does that matter? Well, I tell you, when you have McLean, Lauren, Kent, and Georgina signing up for Pan Am Games, I think that about says it.
You're right. Absolutely. And is there a way that our listeners can watch it?
Well, we're still waiting for a little bit more information. It looks at the moment as if the host broadcaster, CBC, are not having live streaming of that site, but that there may be video highlights which will be available through the Pan Am CBC.
So the FEI,
website.
I guess, doesn't cover it either, because it's kind of...
Well, the FEI, I don't think... I mean, now you're getting into an area that's just, when it comes to broadcasting rights, my eyes kind of cloud over and I go, please speak to this person, Ernie. But I can tell you there'll be extensive coverage and reporting through the USEF website, and I'm going to give you a very British take on an American blog, or is that a very American take on a British blog? I can't remember which way it goes around, but I'll be blogging every day and providing behind-the-scenes insights and photographs from the Pan Ams, and of course we'll be trying to keep all the owners and the sponsors and the foundation up to date with what's going on.
Very good.
So please join us.
Well, that's terrific, Will. What's the website where people can find that?
Well, there's the USEF website, which is usef.org, I think, and then the Pan Am CBC website is panam, PANAM.cbc.ca. And we're not sure what ESPN are doing yet.
Okay.
Or if you wanted in the vernacular, Papa Alpha, November Alpha, Mike.
And that's
my husband would be proud.
That starts in the middle of July. I think July 11th is when it all begins, and with dressage, I think starts first this time. So we'll be looking.
Yeah, I'll be heading up there on the 4th.
Well, you explained this so well, Will, and I know you've been a guest on many of our shows here at the Horse Radio Network over the years, and we certainly appreciate you stopping by. And you're always very clear and make it very understandable, and we appreciate that.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that supports the US equestrian teams. It's never easy out there on the field of play, but when athletes know they've got the support of the public behind them, it really, really makes a difference. So get online, support us through Twitter, through all those lines of communication that I have no understanding of. But get online and support us. It really matters.
Thanks, Will. Will Connell, Director of Sport, USEF. Take care, Will.